Random Thoughts. In this video, I'm going to discuss why the Maasai were allowed to have free love, especially the Morans were allowed to have what Sir Charles Eliot calls free love with unmarried young women. Now, this comes from his book, The East Africa Protectorate. This is a book that was published in 1905, and Sir Charles Eliot served as the Commissioner of British East Africa from 1902 to 1904, and then he resigned before publishing this book. This is a very detailed book about the East Africa Protectorate, the land that later on became the Kenyan colony, and then, of course, later on became the Republic of Kenya. Now, this book discusses geography, the people, the history. It covers very many things about the land and what was happening here. Now, before I continue, I need to address two things. First is the use of Sir. Sir in Sir Charles Eliot, that is. Sir is a knighthood title. It's a title that if somebody is knighted in the UK, they are called Sir. So when I say Sir Charles Eliot, is basically his name. I'm not calling him Sir because I'm thinking of him in a certain way, or I'm respecting him. I've seen some people make comments that, oh, why are you calling him Sir? No, it's a knighthood title. So that, number two, somebody says, or I've seen people say, why are you reading these books? We should read these books so that we know what happened, so that we prevent similar things from happening. And I've said in another video that how the British took this land was by having the so-called chief sign documents, and then they go to the UK and they tell the parliament and the people that we've gotten the right to use the land. And something similar is happening right now about the carbon trading thing in Maasai land. Some companies are coming and signing or making people sign documents, and then they are going to corporations in the West and telling them, oh, we can sell you the so-called carbon credits. Then the people here have been tied down by a contract of 99 years, and then they are controlled on how they are going to use their land. If we want to avoid being exploited today and going forward, we need to understand how we got into being exploited during colonial period. That's why we need to read these documents. Now, back to what I want to talk about in this video, and that is the story about the Maasai. This is this is something that is covered by Sir Charles Eliot in his book. And of course, I've said so many times, whatever Sir Charles Eliot records or any other British administrator or academician or whatever, we need to take it with a pinch of salt, because these people were writing these things. They had a racist perspective. They also had interests that they were trying to achieve. So there is that. Now, the story is that among the Maasai, of course, there were age sets, and there were processes. You were a child, and then you were initiated, especially as a man, and then you became a warrior, a Moran, and then you became an elder, and from there now you are allowed to get married. Now, in this book, he says that among the Maasai, when the young men are initiated, they become the Moran, they will go and live in a different manyatta or homestead, far away from the rest of the families. And while they stay there, they usually used to stay there with the young women. The unmarried young women will go and stay with them, and during that time they will have relations. You can feel it. You can fill the blanks for yourself, and it was allowed. There was not. It wasn't considered to be bad. And even if those women, young girls, got pregnant, they will that did not affect their potential to get married. They will still get married, and the man who took her and became the husband will own the child they gave birth to during that period. So there was that. He calls it the free love situation in Maasai land. Now, he also tries to explain, or he creates the impression that he tried to understand why they did it, even though he describes this as a very terrible practice that needs to end. But he wanted to understand why did they do that, because in most communities or most nations, women are guarded, or girls are guarded, so that they are virgins when they get married. That's like so common in different societies. But in this society, that was not important. The young girls were allowed to go and live with these Morans, where they lived separate from their families, and they would do whatever there. And then even if they became pregnant and had babies, that was no big deal. They'll just get married and life will go on. Now, this is what he says about that. He says, after circumcision, a Maasai who has previously only been a Lioni or youth becomes a warrior, commonly called El Moran. Strictly speaking, Ol Murani in the singular, Il Muran in plural, and remains so until he marries. The warriors do not dwell with the rest of the tribe, but have a separate kraals, where they live with the immature unmarried girls. It is extraordinary that a custom which must be disastrous for the physical well-being of the race and is doubtless responsible for its decrease in numbers should be tolerated among a people whose ideal seems to be, in other respects, strenuous and almost ascetic life of untiring military activity. According to their own traditions, the practice was permitted because it was found that the girls, if kept apart from their own warriors, allowed themselves to be courted by the enemy and betrayed the interests of the tribe. It is hoped that in time, this evil custom will be suppressed. As far as I know, it continues unabated among the Maasai, but among the inhabitants of Taveta who had borrowed it from them, the influence of civilization has partially abolished it. He says that the reason he found why the Maasai culture allowed for the young unmarried girls to go and live with the Morans, separate from the rest of the community, is that the Maasai recognize that for the period that the Morans are away, if the girls are left to stay with the rest of the community, it was so easy for them to be courted by other people. And something we need to be aware of is that the Maasai are very protective of their women. Very much, very much. And up until now, it's very rare for you to find a Maasai woman married by somebody who is not a Maasai. It's happening, it does happen, but it's a rarity. It has not been the case. Maasais are one of those people who their women, almost 90% will be married within the community. And I would say, if you go back 20, 30 years, it was almost 100% they were going to be married within the community. So they allowed this free love thing as part of preventing their girls from going to other people, because the Moran will stay separate from the rest of community for maybe up to 4 years sometimes. That's a long time. And if the girls are just by themselves, then there are what temptations looks like, and they will be picked by people who are not Maasai, and they do not want that to happen. So that's the reason that is given. But I would like to hear from people who come from that culture and understand how it used to happen, whether actually this is true or it's not. Those are my random thoughts.